If you are in your late 20s or even early 30s, then you must be feeling at least a bit of pressure to buy your first house already. I don't know about you guys, but every time it's Raya or Chinese New Year, I'll have my aunties lining up to ask me why I haven't bought a house yet. So in today's video, I'll be talking about this. How do you know if it's the right time for you to buy your first house? Let's get to it. If you guys are around my age or older, then I guess it is pretty normal for us to get this kind of pressure from, the older generations or people like our parents. I guess back then when they were our age, they probably already had their first house because, back then houses were like, what, $200, right? So yeah, they obviously think, you guys are already at this age, you should be buying a house, because back in my days, I bought my first house when I was 18. And it doesn't help when we also see other people around our age start to buy their first homes as well. People like our family members or, friends and stuff like that. We probably get a bit of FOMO, thinking that we should also achieve this goal so we don't get left behind. But honestly, I don't think we should rush into it, I know this is a major milestone that a lot of people want to hit, but because it is a major milestone, because it is a major purchase, I don't think that we should rush into it when we're not ready yet, just because, we're getting pressured by people around our age or people around us. After all, I have heard many stories from, people that are slightly older than me, bosses from my previous work and stuff like that. I've known a lot of people who rushed into buying their first house and then they regretted it. And I've never met anyone yet who regretted not buying their house earlier. So what does it mean to be ready to buy your first house? To me, there are two angles to this. One is of course financial, this one is obvious, but the other aspect that I also consider is, I would say, emotional, or I guess anything that is not related to your finances. So let's start off by talking about that side. The first question that you need to ask yourself is, are you buying this house because you want to buy it, or is it because other people think you should buy it? Like I said, it is quite normal, I guess. You have to expect to get some peer pressure at least, but you need to try and drown out all of these things and really ask yourself, do you really want to buy a house, or do you only want to do it because you want to meet expectations? Then you gotta think, do you want to live in this place long term? Do you want to lock in this location? In my opinion, at least, it is not worth it to rush into buying if you're not certain about this. If you think that, in the next 3 to 5 years, you might want to move somewhere else, then, it's not worth it to buy. From my personal experience and from what I know, it's very expensive for you to buy a house and then have to move somewhere else, a few years down the line. Yeah, you could say, if I need to move somewhere else, I'll just sell the house, right? House prices always go up. Well, first of all, house prices don't always go up. And the thing about the housing market is it's not extremely liquid. It's not that if I want to sell it, I can sell it today. It could take months, depending on where you buy, sometimes even years. And considering the upfront cost that you're gonna pay, you might need to take a loss. But if you're someone who is very in tune with the real estate market, let's say you keep up with trends, you know what locations are good, you have an eye to see, what properties will go up in price, then yeah, go ahead. I have a colleague who is exactly like this. He just bought a house, he wants to stay there, but he doesn't know if he will stay there long term. The reason he bought this house is because he thinks, based on his knowledge, that even if he wanted to move a few years down the line, the price of his house will go up and he could sell it for a profit. So yeah, if you're like him, then go ahead. It's just that for me, I'm not very good with this, so most of the houses that I buy, I just plan to stay at it. It's not like I'm trying to flip it for a profit or anything like that, because I have no idea how to do it. And then when you're thinking about this, you also have to consider where you are in life right now. So let's say you are someone who is not married yet, or you don't even have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, then you might think that this location is perfect for you, you're gonna stay there forever. But once you meet someone and then they don't like the area or they want to stay closer to work, you might have to tweak that. So yeah, these are all things that you need to think about as well. And then the final thing that you want to think about is kind of related to financials, I guess, but it's also partly related to your mental checklist, which is, are you ready to lock in a big amount of money in a piece of property? So when you buy a house, like I said, it's not extremely liquid. It's not like stocks where if I need the cash, I can sell it and get that money today. It will take you a very long time to sort of liquidate that asset. So you need to think about it. Are you ready to do this? Because when you put up the amount of money for your down payment, for your renovation, for all the upfront costs that I will talk about later, you are giving away some financial flexibility. Now, let's talk about the financial side of things. How do you know whether you are financially ready? And this one's a lot more straightforward. To me, there's only one rule. Buy a house that is within your affordability. So don't try and buy a slightly more expensive house. Maybe the bankers say you can get your loan approved, but it doesn't matter whether your loan can get approved or not. All that matters is, do you have enough money every single month to pay it off and still live a comfortable life? This is not a mistake where you accidentally bought an iPhone 16 Pro. That's a 5,000 ringgit mistake. Yeah, you can recover from it. Buying a house that's too expensive for you, you're pretty much locked in, and it's for 35 years. So you need to really think about it. So a good way to gauge how much you're able to afford is that The mortgage that you're paying on your house, which means your monthly loan payments that you're making to the bank, it should not exceed 30% of your monthly income. So let's say your take-home pay is 10,000 ringgit every month, your mortgage should not be more than 3,000 ringgit. But if you really want a nicer house, let's say your salary is not that crazily high, but you do want a really, really nice house that you've had your eyes on, you think this is your dream location, you will live there forever, there is a workaround to try and reduce the monthly payment. So let's say right now you are earning 7,000 ringgit. So using the 30% rule, that means that your monthly budget is 2,100 ringgit, which is, I think generally speaking, would be a house that's between 500,000 to 600,000 ringgit. But let's say you really want this house, this is your dream house, but it costs 800,000 ringgit. With a normal 10% down payment of 80,000 ringgit, this would mean that your monthly payment would be 3,200 ringgit, which is way too high. It is 1,100 above your budget. And don't try and stretch and say, I can try and afford this and eat less and stuff like that, because like I said, this is for 35 years. It will not end, so make sure you can afford it. So if you really, really want this house, if you're in this situation and you want this house, then the only thing that you can do is to pay a higher down payment. So save up money for a longer time and then give a higher down payment. So in this example, if instead of making a 10% down payment, you make a 40% down payment, now your monthly mortgage will go down to just 2,100 ringgit, which is within your budget. I know, yeah, of course, just pay a higher down payment, your monthly loan will be lower, but this is the only way that you can do it. And you can take your time. Like I said, you don't have to rush to buy a house. By the way, I did buy a house recently myself as well, and I gotta tell you guys that there are a lot of other upfront payments that you gotta make as well. I was actually quite surprised. It really adds up. So there are things like stamp duty, you gotta pay for that, you gotta pay for legal fees, and you gotta consider when your house is done, you gotta pay for renovation, and then usually these days, most people take insurance as well. There's also something that you need to pay. So yeah, a lot of these things can really add up. You need to consider this when you're saving money for your down payments. Then there's also the other things that you gotta pay continuously. So if you're living in a condo, for example, or gated and guarded place, you'll have to pay for things like your maintenance fees, your sinking fund, and then the good old cukai pintu. You gotta pay your property taxes as well. I know this sounds like a lot of money, and personally, I would not rush to buy a house if I wasn't financially ready. So I'm the type of person where if the house that I really want to stay at, the location that I really like, is going to cost me 1 million ringgit, but I can't afford it right now, I wouldn't compromise to buy another house because that's what I can afford. I would rather just, continue saving more money, continue trying to grow my income until I'm ready to buy the house that I really want. So what do you do while waiting? You can always rent. Right? Renting is always a good option. Not everyone has to buy a house right now. And I know that renting always gets a bad reputation compared to buying. Some people will say, if you're renting, you're throwing money away. You're helping your landlord pay off his mortgage rather than paying off your own mortgage. Some people might say, you should buy a house now. Don't just rent because, housing prices always go up. And if you don't buy now, you're going to have to pay a much higher price later on. Those things might be true, but in my opinion at least, renting does still make a lot of sense for a lot of people. For one, if you want the flexibility, not just in terms of your finances, but also in terms of where you want to stay, then renting is way better. Renting also makes a lot of sense for people who are just starting out with their careers or people who have unstable jobs or unstable income still. I don't know why, but there are quite a lot of people who are 23, 24 saying, I just got my first job, should I buy a house? I think you just chill and wait, there's no rush. At least if things go bad or you want to explore a different career or if you want to try being self-employed, you're not stuck with a mortgage for the next 35 years. You have a lot more flexibility. It also gives you a lot of financial flexibility, right? You can do whatever you want. You can take a 6-month sabbatical. You can go travel the world for 1 year because you don't have this huge commitment looming over you. And not to mention, you also save a lot of money because you don't have to pay all of those upfront costs that I was talking about. So what am I doing right now? I have to admit that I used to be someone who was a huge advocate of renting. I thought that I would rent for a really, really long time until maybe one day I decided to buy a house. But as I've aged, as I've matured, I realized that buying a house is something that I want to do as well. Maybe somewhere in my 30s. The thing is, I do want a pretty nice house. I don't want to compromise and buy something that I can afford right now if it's not something that I really want. And the houses that I want is probably gonna cost me, over 1 million ringgit. And I don't exactly know where my future will be or what I'll be doing, so it's not something that I want to commit to right now. So right now, I'm just gonna continue renting and saving up more money. I think renting is perfect for someone like me right now because I don't know where my future lies. Like I said, I don't know, maybe I wanna move somewhere else later on. And my rental rates right now aren't really that high, so I can save extra money. And it's good because I do want to save quite a bit of money before I decide to buy my own house. I was just thinking about it previously, And because I am someone who is self-employed, I do want to try and save somewhere around 50% of the value of my house before I decide to buy. So let's say if I wanted to buy a 1.5 million ringgit house, I want to have 750,000 ringgit saved up and ready to go, just for renovations, upfront costs, and having a buffer before I make that huge purchase. One thing that I did do though is that back then I decided to buy a rumah whip, so I do have that. This one, to me, I view it a bit differently because I don't plan to stay there long term. I do see this as more of like a backup plan for me in case one day, let's say, I need to stay somewhere a bit cheaper. But if you guys want to watch the video on why I decided to buy this rumah whip, you can check it out right here. Anyway, these are all the things that you need to consider before making the leap to buy your first house. This is a major milestone and I know a lot of people want to hit it, but like I said, don't rush into it. Make sure you're ready both financially and emotionally because this is a huge decision for you and you don't want to regret, doing something just because other people say that you need to. If you are a homeowner right now, let me know at what age did you buy your first house and do you regret that decision? Thanks for watching this video to the end, guys. Give me a huge thumbs up if you enjoyed it and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. See you guys in the next one. Peace out.